Judging Emiliano.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the W.A.D.E Concept Podcast. Your boy's got the mixer in full usage. Not quite where I want it to be yet as far as like setting it up, but that was how you heard that smooth transition from the music out to your boy's voice. How's my mic sounding, guys? Mic's good? Hopefully. Yep, I just checked it. Bam. Mic is good. What's going on, everyone? I can see Waffles in the chat, Shogun in the chat. What's popping? Volume up? How's that? Oh, Snikes. How's that right there? Yeah, my mic is a little less loud than I'd like it to be right now. I'm gonna try to do some things to adjust that. But there you go. Appreciate you guys helping me out in chat. Okay, so today, guys, we are here for one specific reason. I'm sure you saw the thumbnail. What's going on with MMA Judging, man? Oh, yeah, sorry. Before we get into anything, make sure you guys like and subscribe to the W.A.D.E Concept Podcast if you like what we're doing here. If you're new here and you're seeing this in VOD, which would be after the live stream format, make sure you hit that sub button. We do this 3 times a week, twice in normal podcast form, once in reaction form, usually. And then we do some other videos, which I just filmed our fitness video for this week. So you guys will be seeing that hopefully toward the end of the week. I'm not even going to put a day on it because I don't know when I'll be done editing it. But I just filmed it. It was super tough. Your boy's super tired. But yeah, thank you guys for being here. So let's just get right into it, man. So we watched UFC 247 as a stream, as a community, like we always do. And I got to be honest, guys. I was baffled by the complete ineptitude of the Houston, or I guess the Texas State Athletic Commission, and the judges that were either picked or provided for this event. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, UFC 247, Shogun said I missed it. Well, I got your recap, big dog. So UFC 247, not a huge heavy name card as far as like big name fighters on the prelims or even on the main card. But we had some really good fights and some fights that came out in some really wacky decisions. So I know we have somebody in here that's an Andrea Lee fan. I think that might have been Devil, is a big Andrea Lee fan. She lost in what I considered a controversial decision, lost to Lauren Murphy, when pretty much everyone in chat, myself included, the commentary, people in the Toyota Center, all thought she had pretty much won the fight, and she lost that fight controversially. The next fight, Trevin Giles, James Krause. James Krause taking a fight on 20 hours notice, guys. I know we talked about it in the live stream, but 20 hours notice is, I mean, right up to the line, because you have to get physicals done. You got to get your medicals cleared. You got to make weight. And James Krause usually fights at welterweight. Before that, fought at lightweight and was fighting at middleweight for this fight. I thought he won the fight. A lot of the people in chat thought he won the fight. And unfortunately for James, his decision did not go that way either. So that was 2 on the card. Tommy, what's going on, man? Welcome in. We are starting our breakdown of the State Athletic Commission judging panel for the UFC 247 card, and just how completely oblivious this judging crew was. Not only those 2 fights we talked about, but obviously one of the bigger ones, the Jonathan Martinez and Andre Ewell fight, was another one that was crazy. But hey, Wade just uploaded a compilation of live reactions to the Jones decision. MMA KO in the chat, guys. What's poppin', bud? Appreciate it. I'm going to go check it out. Got me in the thumbnail. My man, I appreciate that. I'm going to go check it out 100%. 100%. Guys, check out my man's reactions. He compiles a lot of reactions together. Go check his stuff out. That's sick, though. Hell yeah. Appreciate it, big dog. Yeah, so those 3 fights, Andre Ewell, Jonathan Martinez, Andrea Lee, Lauren Murphy, Trevin Giles, James Krause, those were a precursor, and we talked about that in the live stream. We said, look, this could have an effect on the main event or the co-main event, and it started to scare me as the card went on that nothing changed, because right after the Trevin Giles fight, we had a little bit of a controversial decision with Derrick Lewis. So it seemed as if this wasn't an anomaly. This was the actual factor in the judging. There was one judge. Obviously, there were more than one judge there that were making some kind of screwy calls, but there was one judge in particular that was really kind of going off the deep end with some of these decisions. So you started to see a pattern. You started to see fighters just be bewildered by the decisions that were being made, and so you're looking at it as the fight card goes on, and you start to get a little nervous. And we thought we were going to get nervous for John Jones. We thought, okay, John's going to get screwed out of his title if this fight's close. Well, it turned out to be a little bit more complicated than that. Always, MMA, always. You're always hooking it up, big dog. Thank you. I can't wait to see it. Tommy says, did you hear Joe and Dom talking about the judge that wasn't even looking at one of the fights? So Tommy brings up the Joe and, Joe Solis basically is the guy, the judge that completely just was oblivious to what was happening in this cage. But Tommy brings up the Joe Rogan and Dominick Cruz on commentary saying, looking across the cage and seeing, it was probably Joe, the Solis guy, saying that he was not looking at the cage. Now, that turned out to be a little bit of hot garbage as well, because I think he was looking at the actual monitors that were below the cage. So they have monitors now. The UFC has monitors that are actually sitting below the cage lining. That seems to be what he was actually looking at. So he probably was watching the fight, which makes it worse. You know, like I wouldn't even give it. I don't want to give anybody a pass. Like if you're not watching the fight, you shouldn't be judging, obviously. Like get out of here. You shouldn't be judging at all, ever. But the fact that he was watching the fight, because it turned out he was actually looking down at one of the UFC provided monitors, the fact that he was watching the fights, and I think that was the Lauren Murphy fight, and still was having to come to these crazy conclusions, it's baffling. Like I said this in chat during the live stream. You guys can go back and watch. You guys could pick 3 people from my chat, not even me, 3 people from my chat, and they would have gotten every single one of those fights correct. Every single one of them. I don't know if it was, and this is not just an anomaly with Texas. This happens. This happens a lot in MMA. In New York, and these newer commissions, and they just talked about France getting a commission signed to possibly have fights in France. If I'm the UFC, they have to, so MMA makes a good point here. MMA KO says they should give judges the use of replay between rounds, even if it needs an extra 30 seconds to make decisions better. What I like is that the community is now talking about it, right? We've been always saying we need to fix MMA judging. We need to fix MMA judging. And we don't really offer a lot of solutions. And that's the problem with this, you know, how we move forward as a community. We don't really offer a lot of solutions. That's a good one. I like that. I don't know about the 30 seconds because then you take away a little bit of the competition base of what it is the fighters are doing. But I do like the ability for them to use replay if needed without stopping the fight. Another thing I like, and we'll talk about this after the John Jones fight, open scoring. I love that. We talked about a little bit about adding judges. I don't know if maybe that was just, you know, me in reactionary mode talking. I don't know how many we would add or how to really qualify what we would do. Maybe 5 judges. I just don't know like what the number is and what makes it like, what makes us better. Does it make more judges make our judging better? I understand that's more minds, but that could also be more dummies, quite frankly, from these commissions making even worse decisions. So I think it's education. Gerald, what's good, man? Shogun says, Wade, what's that picture on your wall? I know, I got to get my camera to stop blurring out the background. I love when it blurs out the background. It's called aperture priority. It keeps me at the focal point because, you know, your boy got that extra sweet smile, blue eyes, you know what I'm saying? But it's a picture of, here, I'll just take it off the wall. It is a picture of the Last Supper, but instead of it being obviously Jesus and his disciples, this is the Marvel Universe. I think this is actually the first team of Avengers or something like that. So you got the Fantastic Four. You got Johnny Storm, obviously, Miss Fantastic, Invisible Woman. The Thing. You got Captain America. That's Stan Lee right there in the middle, acting as Jesus in this picture. You got Spider-Man, Daredevil, Cyclops, Jean Grey, Hulk, Iron Man, and Thor. And then this guy under the table. Can you guys tell me who this is, by the way? Who the hell is this? I bought this at a swap meet, and I want to say this is Dr. Octavius, but I don't know who that is. I'll give you a closer look. The hell is that? I didn't even notice it when I bought it. So that's that picture. Daredevil. I didn't know if I said Daredevil's name. Yeah, I really like this picture, man. I got it off a guy for like $12. I have no idea who that guy is under the table, but I think it looks super cool. So I got to get it to where I can fix it. I want to get more too. I want to get some stuff here. I have some boxing gloves coming in, hopefully soon, that for my gym that are like orange and white and have my name on them. I think we're going to hang them maybe right there. And then we're going to try to put something for Kobe up somewhere. I don't know where, but we're going to get some more art. I'm going to be going to more swap meets. I love that. MMA says I got a Spider-Man and Hulk going at it in my profile picture. Nice. Dude, I'm a big Marvel head. I want to get into doing more like movie and comic and stuff like that, like reviews or reaction stuff. I really want to do that. Superhero art. Hot Kenobi. Have to check him out. But yeah, Gerald, what's cracking, big dog? So it's just, you know, going back to what we were talking about. So let's talk about the main event, and then we'll talk about what we do to fix things. So the card kind of kicked off in the main card. Derrick Lewis, I thought, had a controversial decision over Ilir Latifi. Ilir was kind of imposing his will. You know, he was grappling Derrick Lewis, really doing a good job of it. Derrick had some flurries, but nothing that was too substantial in my opinion. He did get the decision in Houston. Listen, the rules are what they are. And a guy like Derrick, you know, I don't think he should feel bad about the win. Neither should John Jones or anybody that got the win. The rules are what they are. The judges judge what they judged. If the fight goes there, then you have to live with those results if you're the fighter. Unfortunately, sometimes it is Bush League, and it was a lot on this night. But Derrick Lewis does come away with the win. Dan Ige with a big win after what we thought would be kind of the case with him. Came out, ball of fury, did what he had to do, got that decision. Justin Tafa impressed. He was a guy with a lot of hype behind him, a lot of hype. And after being KO'd stiff in his debut in the UFC, comes back and has a spectacular win over Juan Adams. Not really sure what's next for Juan Adams, to be honest with you. Hasn't looked good in either of his showings. And Justin Tafa looked really good. I mean, obviously at heavyweight, you're not going to see a lot in a knockout in a round, or excuse me, in a minute and a half or so. But in what we saw from him, he looked quick. The hooks, the hands were definitely crisp, and they were there, and he hit with power. So congratulations to him. MMA said, I think DL deserved that, to be honest. He landed all those best shots. This is what I said in the fight, and this is what I'll say now to you. I said this, I can't remember which fight it was, but I said, look, these judges, as the night went on, and just in general, the impression you leave on a judging panel, especially at the end of the fight, Derrick Lewis does such a good job at leaving a really, really good impression in his fights, because for whatever lack of output he has, he really puts it on guys late. And this is the same argument that a lot of people are giving John Jones in the main event. He put it on Dominick Reyes late. Both those rounds put it on him. Derrick Lewis did a really good job in the third round and came out with a flurry on Nalir Latifi for pretty much the last 3 minutes. So I'm not so upset with that one, to be honest with you. That one is one of the closer ones that I'll be like, okay. Like I'm not gonna sit here and cry over spilled milk about Derrick Lewis winning that fight. There are some on the card that I'm really scratching my head with, especially the main event, but that one I'm not. Gerald said, did you watch that aerial interview with Derrick? Oh yeah, I saw that. So Derrick Lewis was talking about he has a serious health issue that could be life-threatening. I saw just a clip of it, but Ariel didn't believe him because, Derrick Lewis trolls a lot. And Derrick's like, no, I'm dead serious. And I couldn't believe like what I was hearing either, kind of. And him being this is all speculative. I don't know anything, but him being a big guy, and he said a lot of athletes have some problems with it. I either think hernia, like a really bad hernia, or a heart issue. And I really hope it's not some kind of heart issue. I really, really hope that's not true. And I'm not here to speculate and say that's what it is, or breaking news, or hot take, none of that. That's just what I think when I hear those things that people don't want to talk about, like especially if it's something that you don't want to tell anybody yet. It usually has to do with someone's heart. And I really hope that's not the case, because he had been looking better and better and getting in better and better shape, especially lately, so I hope not. Yeah, that was rough to see, though. And that's what you think, right, Gerald? That's kind of the thing that comes to your mind in the forefront is if he's not one to talk about it, and he said it's life-threatening and that other athletes have had to deal with it. You think of basketball players and guys that are really big and kind of oversized, they have heart issues. I don't want to say that is it, but let's hope not. Let's all as a community hope that's not the case, because, I mean, there's no better guy in MMA than that dude. Like, Derrick Lewis embodies what it means to be just a good human, the stuff he did, humanitarian work he does in Houston, just how lighthearted he is on fight week and how he comes to fight and does what he does. But at the end of the day, it's all love and it's all respect with that guy. So I hope not. So much. As you watch Derrick Lewis come into fights, he's looking in better shape every time he's coming into fights. So, let's just hope not, man. And then moving on, we had the co-main event. Valentina Shevchenko showed us again why she is one of the best fighters, man or woman, on the planet. Just picked Caitlin apart. It wasn't really a competitive fight at all. At one point she threw a spinning heel kick that, had it landed with the heel as she threw it, Caitlin might still be on the ground. Landed with the foot and kind of slapped on the cheek, but dominated the striking. Showed off her grappling once again, and then and finished the fight. So congratulations to Valentina. You're looking at it, and yeah, Derrick kept going to the flying knees, man. He's explosive too. Like, he has some techniques that you wouldn't believe he would have at that weight and that height, because he doesn't possess necessarily the most athletic looking body, but he was throwing flying knees, and yeah, the uppercut he landed. Like, everything that he does is explosive, and it's quicker than you would think a guy that weighs in at 260 pounds would move. But he definitely surprises guys, and he's got obviously unlimited power and carries that power late into fights. Yeah, but for Valentina, what do you look at for her going forward? I mean, the most obvious answer is Amanda. It's Amanda Nunes. But are we going to keep going back to that well over and over? Or are we going to let that breathe for a little bit? Because Amanda doesn't have an opponent on the books right now. They're talking about Valentina maybe going and fighting some other 25ers. I don't know how to get behind that. I know Valentina is obviously more concerned with defending her belt, staying in her weight class. I think at some point they're going to look toward that Amanda fight again, because in the women's divisions, especially in those top three, 25, 35, 45, they've kind of been cleaned out by both girls. Gerald, appreciate you, man. Appreciate that, big dog. Take it easy, brother. We'll see you next time. Everybody say holla to Gerald on his way out. A man came in, provided some positive energy from my boy Derrick Lewis, and really some good insight. So peace, Gerald. Yeah, so I don't know, man. It's going to be tough to see what they do with Valentina going forward. I heard Joanne Calderwood, it could be somebody they want for her, or Joanne Calderwood, excuse me. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know how much the community would get behind a fight like that, more so than the Amanda fight. But again, how many times they're going to go to the well with that, we'll see. But good performance from Valentina. And maybe Weili Zhang Weili. I'm still confused on the pronunciation. Maybe we get that fight. That would be an interesting fight. I'd be behind that 100%. We'll see what she does with Joanna first, though. Okay, guys. This is where we're going to spin the meat and potatoes in this podcast. Jon Jones, Dominick Reyes. And we're going to go off in different avenues, and we're going to talk about why this fight's so important for both guys. And we're going to talk about why the decision was so important for both guys. And then we're going to talk about how, what can we do to improve what, at least in my opinion, was a bad call. I thought Valentina got salty. I thought Amanda won the first of the two, and I thought Valentina won this last one. Like it was both are close, or excuse me, last one was close, but I did think Valentina got Amanda, and I think that's what's so interesting about making the third fight was that Valentina didn't, in my opinion, didn't necessarily lose that fight more so than maybe. It was just one of those nights that we saw even with 247 where she just didn't get the nod. So I would like to see that fight again. It's just the problem is now that Valentina is in her division wiping girls out and Amanda's doing her thing at 35 and 45, I don't think Valentina's necessarily in a big hurry to go to 35 or 45 and contend when she's having a complete dominant run at 25. Like no one at 25, in my opinion right now, if I think off the top of my head, there's not a girl there that's going to challenge her. But should Weili Zhang come up, stylistically, I think we'd have a conversation there. But let's see first what happens with the Weili Zhang Joanna fight. I want to see how she looks against Joanna. Maybe we can do some MMA math, even though it never works out. We can see kind of where she's at. So we'll see. So main event time, guys. Jon Jones, Dominick Reyes. Now, this is an amazing fight. This was an amazing fight. And for every... That's funny, man. Anytime Valentina talks, I just smile because how funny she sounds, but how dead serious she is about stuff. When she was like, even when before the fight started and they were doing media row, when she was kind of trying to deny she was in the spy, I think she was more serious about it than like the interviewers were joking with her and like, "Are you a spy?" And she was like, "No, I am not a spy. I do like James Bond. I like all the things, and I'm a good marksman, and my striking is the best, and I am not a spy." Like she was dead serious about it. So I think that's so funny when she talks because I know she understands the whole running joke, but she's like trying to put that away, which is what a spy would do. Okay. So yeah, Jon Jones, Dominick Reyes, an amazing fight. Honestly, I'm not going to toot my own horn here, but what we said about Dominick Reyes, facts, Valentina for the new James Bond. What we said about Dominick Reyes going into this fight is kind of what he did. Other than the fact that we said he should probably pressure Jon the entire, try to put Jon on the back foot over and over and over. He did that early in that first round. He did put Jon on kind of the back foot a little bit. But Dom, what I not realized, and this is where I can kind of own up and say I didn't realize this, Dom is so good off his back foot. And if he can entice you to come forward and really start to pick you apart off his back foot, and as he slides kind of laterally, not necessarily against the cage, but in that kind of danger zone there where he still has some room to get away, and he has different angles that he can utilize to do that, he's super successful there. And so I would, that's probably the one area where I say it was different. Their game plan was a little different, but we pretty much called it. We talked about Dom eating up the front leg of John, using the lead leg kick to go high later on, and then touching him to really just completely overwhelm John, especially early, by touching him. Because the one thing John loves to do is calculate, read, right? He wants to go in that first round. He's not going to start and come out blazing hot, but he is going to systematically pick you apart over 5 rounds. And as you start to slow, he starts to speed, right? Well, Dom didn't slow down, at least not until the last couple of rounds. Dom wasn't slowing down, and John had no time to read anything because he was too busy protecting himself. And he sometimes wasn't protecting himself, and he was eating shots. And you can't question the toughness of Jon Jones. I mean, Dom hit him. The first round touched him up. Second round, in my opinion, some people are calling the second round the controversial round. I went back and watched that fight. I'm more confident in the second round not being the round that's close. I thought the third round was way more close than the second was. But that's neither here nor there. The point I'm making is that Dom gave John a different look. He was, the whole week leading up, he talked about how he was more athletic than Jon Jones, and I even had to kind of sit back and go, do I really think that Dominick Reyes is more athletic than Jon Jones? But he showed it. He showed his athleticism. He showed the ability to catch John, be faster than John, use different angles while John stayed flat-footed. Dom was sliding away and then counterattacking, or sliding away and then attacking again before John had even realized that Dom was coming for him. Like there was a sequence where John was stalking Dom against the cage, or Reyes against the cage, and Reyes kind of swung out to his left, landed a kick to the outside of the leg. John tried to come closer. Reyes swung out to the right, jab, left hand to John before John had even centered his body again. And it was just like John was in slow motion, and Dom was just bouncing around beside him. So he definitely was the more bouncy rhythm fighter, and caught John off guard a ton with his movement. I think with his hip strength, again, something we talked about. I think with his hip strength and his ability to catch John from different angles, be able to time John's forward motion too. Again, I was so impressed with his ability to strike off the back foot. So impressed. MMA says, yeah, he's great off his back foot, which is the biggest shot of the night. Head kick or the uppercut, I would say. Body kicks. But the uppercut that Reyes landed on Jones was vicious, and John ate it. I mean, you can't question that guy's chin, his toughness. John ate that square, and he ate a couple of head kicks for sure. The head kick out of when Reyes swung to his left, he ate it flush and just kept walking forward, which is insane. The ability, the want from Jon Jones after defending his belt 13 times. For that guy to still want to win that badly after doing it over and over and over, insane. That level of commitment is something I have to look at as just a human and say, I want to commit to something like he commits to winning that belt over and over and over, or going after it. You know what I mean? That's insane. So, as MMA's talking about, the 49-46 scorecard and the main issue for me, I'm with you there. That's... In the moment, I was so upset that Dominick didn't win, or I was so shocked, then upset that Dominick didn't win, that I was calling for, robbery and everything else. I go back and watch the fight on a level head, not any alcohol, obviously. And the only thing that really upsets me is the fact that the 49-46 card, MMA says, he did say his vision went black a few times. Yeah. John's an animal. But at heavyweight, I don't know, man. We'll see. I do think John did underestimate Dominick a fair amount. I think he maybe overestimated his own abilities, and people are talking about how John, the things that he did in his youth are maybe catching up to him, and that may be true as far as, some of the cocaine and things outside of the cage. That may be true. And when you live like that, your body just is going to deteriorate a little faster. My main issue is that John, I felt like the game plan from Team Jones, it felt like, was to outlast Dominick, to outlast his barrage and then pour it on heavy. Well, the problem with that was Dominick Reyes didn't go anywhere in those first 3 rounds. In fact, he turned it up. It seemed like every single round he kept turning it up on John, and he put it on him. Like, make no mistake about it. Dominick Reyes put it on John Jones like I haven't seen very many people outside of maybe Alex Gustafsson, but I would say this fight was even more so. Dominick put it on John Jones. He hurt John a ton to the body, the uppercut, the vicious uppercut, sticking the left hand on him over and over despite John having a reach advantage. Dominick continued to stick him with the left. So then we get into the scorecard, then we get into the later rounds. And John starts to find some sort of success with Dominick. He starts to find a little bit more rhythm, because another thing that John does really well that now is starting to be caught up to is he has a very specific set of strikes, right? When you know John Jones is striking, he doesn't throw anything that really surprises you anymore. He did in his youth, but what does he kind of throw now? He throws that defensive oblique kick, offensive, defensive, however he wants to use it. He throws out of orthodox, mostly he boxes. He doesn't really box a lot out of southpaw. But out of orthodox, he boxes, throws the overhands, gets a little bit kind of outside of his own range with his overhands, starts to get really wide and kind of throws them over the top, and his body is off balance. Throws the right straights, tries to work the body, loves the body work. Out of southpaw, wants to throw high kicks, wants to throw kicks to the body. He did switch up and throw some leg kicks out of orthodox, which I was surprised to see. But for the most part, the game plan with John Jones, you've seen what the strikes he brings. Dominick Reyes is still in that mode where he has a little bit of variety. In fact, they were saying that Dominick Reyes, when he was switching stances in the fight against John, that's the first time he'd ever done it. The first time he'd ever done it. He was just learning how to do it in the gym and just decided to try it. If that doesn't remind you of a young John Jones, I don't know what does. So, MMA says, I think Jones could re-enter his state in the second Gus fight if he rematches Reyes. Probably more focused. I could see that. I could see a more focused John coming out and really setting the tone on Dominick, like coming out strong on Dominick, and that maybe going a different way. I'm with you there. I could definitely see that, because I think that's being a little bit overlooked, is that John possibly overlooked Dominick more so than we're given, like, obviously all the credit that Dominick has and got from this fight, he definitely should have. But I do think that John, there was a little bit of complacency in John. And again, we talked about it in our breakdown video, that he didn't take Dominick as serious as he probably should have. But that's not any excuse at all, because that might be an excuse for a round or two. But Dominick put it on him for 3 rounds, and even a little bit in the 4th, and then John took over. But he put it on John Jones. MMA says John gets $500,000 per fight. He doesn't give a wait. I got something for you guys on my new mixer. He doesn't give a How you like that? I got a little bleep button. Putting his career on the line for $50K. Yeah. I don't think he cares. Or at least in this fight, I don't think he cared who the opponent was. I think John has a deep, deep care for that belt. I mean, we saw in the fight. I think he cares more about retaining that belt than the actual opponent, because he has to kind of manufacture that anger towards somebody. Yeah, I got the beep button. You mother. You know what I'm saying? I got it here. So, yeah, I think John his motivation is so deep-rooted in that belt and defending that title, because, again, 14 title defenses is what John earned in this fight, which is more than anybody ever, I think, in the UFC. So that's what John Jones was fighting for. Dominick Reyes, on the other hand, was fighting for, obviously the belt to change his life. I mean, that's life-changing. Not only the money, but the status of having the belt. Because let's be honest, now that Dominick didn't get this win, and usually you don't clamor for an immediate rematch, right? You like that, MMA? Usually you don't clamor for an immediate rematch for the challenger, but in this case, how do you not? Because if we go back, when Gus lost his fight against John Jones, it took him damn near 3 years to get that rematch. 3 years in a fight that a lot of people said that Gus won. So could this be one of those things where John says, "Nah, I'm going to wait for Izzy to pop up to 205, or I'm going to go up to heavyweight and try my luck there"? You don't know, because that was Dominick's shot. That was his shot to shock the world, to grab that belt from John Jones, to change his life. And I'm not going to cry robbery, but I do think it got taken from him. So we get into the 4th and 5th round. like I said, John starts to figure it out. Dominick does start to tire. He did start to fade. And John Jones, man, for all the things I said about Dominick, he started putting it on John Jones in rounds 1 through 3. John came for blood in 4 and 5. You want to talk about a way to finish a fight, and this is something we're going to go into in a second, but a way to finish the fight, not knowing where you're at on the scorecards, not knowing if you're winning or losing, but knowing that you have to do something in those last 2 rounds to secure a victory. Both guys probably in their heads were like, Dominick said he thought he won 3, so maybe he did, taper off the gas a little. John Jones stepped on it. Damn near put the gas pedal through the floor. And something has to be said for that championship mindset. When it does come into those later rounds and John was able to turn it on like that, that is a veteran. That's the greatest of all time, in my opinion still. That is the greatest of all time doing what the greatest of all time does. Regardless of where he's at on the scorecard, regardless of what else is happening or has happened in the fight, he's been touched up for 3 rounds, getting battered to the body, losing round after round, and he comes out and puts on a show in 4 and 5, especially in 5. He completely dominated 5. So that credit has to be given to John Jones. I don't want to hear Dominick just, walked over him in 3 and thought he had it, so he put it in the bag and kind of, that was it. No, yeah, he might have stepped off the gas a tad bit in 4, but John was coming in the 5th. It didn't matter who it was. John was taking over that fight. So that credit has to be given to John Jones. So from there, we get the scorecards. And I can't even, MMA KO is going to have this on his channel. I can't even remember what I said. No worries, dog. No worries. Go do your thing. Peace out, brother. Everybody give shouts to MMA KO, man. He's heading out. Just a awesome contributor to the podcast. My man just puts some stuff on his channel of us and our community. I couldn't be more thankful. So thanks for coming in, bud. So yeah, we get the decision. I know I reacted with the and still, but I remember in my head going, there's no way. There's no way that John Jones just got this fight. And it wasn't, and surprisingly, I wasn't a victim of recency bias, because I could have seen those last 2 rounds and been like, this is John's fight. I knew it was close, but something inside me said, this is Dominick Reyes' fight. And I had it, if I had to go back and score it, which I did in the second fight, I had it 48-47 Dom. I had Dom winning the first, second, and third being the closest. And if you wanted to go 48-47 John, okay. I would still argue that Dominick won, but I'm not crying robbery over that. But when you tell me that there's a judge that gave a 49-46 scorecard to John Jones, meaning John Jones won 4 of the 5 rounds, what are we doing? I'm not joking at all. What are we doing? As a legitimate sport, as a sport that spectators pay just the same amount of money to come watch as the NFL or NBA or the MLB, there are missed calls in those sports. There are sometimes egregious missed calls in those sports. You know what happens, though? Do you know what happens when these calls are missed? They inform the public that they missed the call. Remember that famous Saints and Rams thing from a couple of years ago, where it basically cost the Saints a Super Bowl appearance? You know what the NFL did? They came out and said, yeah, we missed it. This is what's going to happen to that official. This is what's going to happen to that crew. There are consequences for actions. In MMA, we have no consequences for these judges. We have no set rule set for them if they were to, the missed PI. Yeah, the missed PI, running back out of the backfield, Saints dude, trying to catch a pass, gets absolutely clocked by the Rams defender. There's punishments. There are specific ways they address the media and public. There's answers, right? We missed it. In the MMA community, there is not that. We have no checks and balances for these commissions. And that's what's frustrating, is that they bring commissions that, one, the Texas State Athletic Commission doesn't even adopt the new rule set, the new unified rule set for MMA, which would mean that there are still states to do it, but which would mean basically the commissions that are providing judges, the judges don't understand the new rule set. So how do they even understand the old rule set? Because we're getting these wild decisions in 4 out of our 10 prelim and main card fights. it's shocking to me that you have this sort of problem. It would be if it's one fight, okay. But when it's 4 out of 10, and that's because not every one of them went to decisions, so really it's 4 out of 8 or 4 out of 6, it's complete garbage. Now, I can sit here and I can say things like, it's wrong, Dominick Reyes should have that belt, and I do think Dominick Reyes won that fight, and I'm doubling down by saying that today after I watched that fight again in the day after that. Dominick Reyes should have that belt. Dominick Reyes should be the light heavyweight champion of the world, but guess what? He's not. And you know why? Because some judges who, again, we all agree to the rules here. If you can't knock the other person out or get him out of there in the 5 rounds allotted, it's going to go to the judge's scorecard. The only problem I have is that then the decision comes from a set group. And how they got to that decision, why that group made the decision they made, or the consequences thereafter are not explained to anybody else. Not at all. So as a community and as fans and as fighters and commentators and even the UFC, you start to scratch your head and go, okay, well, they say who wins fights, but they're not really an MMA commission. They're more of a boxing commission. So do they understand the sport? And if they do, okay, say they understand the sport. If we have questions, who do we go to? If we have questions for that judge, does he have to answer it? If we ask him why he judged the way he did, is there any way we get an answer? No, there's not. So you have to sit back and say, what do we do now? How do we fix this? That's the main question of the podcast. How do we fix this? Well, I've heard some suggestions, and I'm not going to take credit for any of these, but I've heard suggestions because I always hear, and sometimes I'm the one tooting the horn on, we need to fix MMA judging. Because sometimes it's so blatantly obvious, the answer to who wins and who loses fights. And these guys just get it wrong. Flat out, they get it wrong. And there's no consequences. They don't have to serve any kind of suspension. They don't have to go back and do some sort of training or go back and judge amateur fights and work their way back up like you would in maybe like a wrestling commission or in any other sport. Football, basketball, baseball, you start at a level and you work your way through tests, checks and balances, experience to that highest level. And if you mess up on that highest level on a grand scale like this, then you are sent back to relearn how to relearn the new nuances in fights or relearn the rule set in the NFL, whatever it is. You have to go back and retrain those people to then have an expert level knowledge on what's happening. And these guys don't. So I heard some suggestions. I heard Dominick Cruz talk about more communication, right? Dominick Cruz was on the telecast. He was with Joe Rogan. They were highly upset, but not in like a crazy, like yelling, screaming, just discussing it. They called for more discussion from the media to the commissions to the UFC, an open dialogue as to how these judges are picked, how they are taught to judge the sport, and the consequences should they completely butcher something that a spectator paid for. I paid $70 of my money, and I'm sure the people in attendance paid a lot more, especially those front rows. The fighters are depending on, not just for that night, they didn't just ruin a night for a fighter. You're talking about people that put their entire lives into this stuff. Dominick Reyes was fighting for a world championship that he pretty much should have won. That changes his life. It changes his income, changes his opportunities. That changes his status in a sport that he didn't even think he would be doing 4 or 5 years ago. He was an IT expert. It's life-changing. So when you're talking about, these judges just got it wrong. Dana White was saying something like, who knows? The judges, man. Who knows? What do we know? What I do know is he just screwed out 3 or 4 fighters from their from their win bonus. Because the UFC has this show and win bonus, he screwed 3 fighters out of that. That's taking food off people's plates, and I can't stand that type of stuff. Tommy says the key is they have to create a set scoring program. Leg kicks, I'm with you. I heard that suggestion today. So we need to set I would say a variable score system that has a detailed description as to what weighs more than what. As Tommy's alluding to, right now there's really no Wade scale. Wade scale. There's no scale to say a takedown is X amount of points versus a strike is X amount of points versus a kick versus a submission attempt versus a submission defense. There's no way to tell what matters more, right? Like if you defend a submission, does that weigh more than an actual submission attempt? If you defend a takedown, does that weigh more than a 1-2 combo? Where's the scoring system, and how do we make it a more smooth transition between those points? Or we have some sort of standard as to who is, judging those specific, like it isn't necessarily just a standard on the scoring system. It's a standard on judging, because if there is no standard on who you are letting judge these contests, if they don't have any sort of knowledge of the sport to come into it, and they're boxing commission judges that happen to then go to MMA events, we're screwed out of the gate. But I like Tommy's idea. I mean, that's the most basic knowledge that we need. What is our standard of scoring? And how do we get that to all of our commissions, all 50 or so of our commissions? Because that's the thing. That's another thing. I had a suggestion that it probably could never work, because commissions are not going to pay for a specific, they want their people on retainer. They're not going to pay the UFC to bring in judges state to state to have those fights judged from the UFC judges in-house. That's just not going to happen. I would love to see that happen. I'd love to see the UFC say, okay, we're going to hire, and the UFC has the money to do it. And I said this on Twitter, that ESPN Plus money they have. It's probably can't happen this way, but it's my idea is to try to figure out a more consistent judging base, not just a standard, but person to person, more consistency. And that's by hiring a small pool of traveling judges. Say you hire, 50 to 100 judges, right? And those 50 to 100 judges are the only people that judge MMA events in the United States. You hire some internationally, obviously, when you go out there. But they don't have to necessarily be in the state commission, but they have to register with, however many commissions are in that same area that they live. UFC has them on staff, has them on retainer. Those fights happen. Those specific judges trained by the UFC or trained by somebody independent with a judging system then takes that place. I also like the suggestion of open scoring. Excuse me, open scoring meaning. Open scoring meaning between rounds. These judges would then have to quickly turn over that card. The card would then be announced between rounds so fighters know where they're at. So it doesn't necessarily fix the judging, but at least it gives these fighters the knowledge that, okay, I won that round. This is the only sport where between the start and the finish of the fight, you have no idea who's winning and losing on a statistical base, right? The fighters at least do not. They go in there, they're fighting. They have to kind of guess to say, okay, well, I'm winning this round, I think, because of X, Y, and Z in my head. But I got to get my mind right to go out there for the second. So we got to put that one away. It would be more simple to just say 10-9, so-and-so. The fighter knows at that point they have either won or lost the round, and they can adjust their game plan accordingly. Very simple. So 2 suggestions. Open scoring. Well, 3, I guess. Open scoring. Set scoring system. 2 things that I think should be, regardless of, all the wild and wacky things that I come up with, should be in the sport and should have been in the sport for a very long time. The only sport where fighters or participants have no idea what's going on as far as the actual scoring until they sit there at the end of the fight and hope their name's called. It's insane to me. And then my suggestion being a set amount of retained judges specifically for MMA contests. They're not boxing commission based. They don't have just a knowledge of traditional Western boxing or whatever it is. They have a wide-ranging knowledge based off of our suggested set scoring system. And from that, those judges are on retainer, paid by whoever. UFC, I would hope that the UFC would shell out some money to help if it was commission-based, because this is the officiating of your sport. If you want to be a legitimate sport, shell out some of that money to help these commissions pay people, because these judges, to be fair, this isn't a glamorous job. They don't get paid like crazy good money. They kind of get paid dirt. So I can understand that side of things where they're not getting paid a ton to come and do it anyway. So the motivation might not be there to put on their best performance. So those 3 things, in my opinion, are Simple. They are, in my opinion, required for this sport. Find competent judging. Give them a set standard on how to score. Hold them to that standard. If they are not competing in their judging realm at that standard, you find somebody that is looking to become a judge and replace them in that, just like you would in any other job. Any other job. If someone is not doing the required work, if they are not participating in the amount that you need them to at a job, they will be fired. It will happen. Why is this any different? And then third, give these fighters a chance to understand what it is. You tell me if this fight was read out that going into that fifth round that Dominick Reyes was down 48-45 in one judge's eyes, that he's not going to at least try to step on the gas a little more. If he's down, if it's a really close fight heading into that fifth, he's not going to understand the fact that he needs to push a little bit harder or he needs to do something a little different. That's vital, in my opinion, to these fighters. Again, not just the main event. Going to a third round and it's a 1-1 fight. You're telling me that the fighters won't have any different strategy going into the third? I think it would make for more exciting fights in even the third round, the 3-round fights. You're not going to see people just kind of, okay, I got 2 in the bag, I think. I'm just going to kind of chill in this round. I think you would have fighters with a more urgent approach to that third round or second or first or wherever they're at. But I do think open scoring is something that not only I can get behind. I think fighters on Ariel's show were talking about, yeah, of course. Why would we not want that? That's something that of course we want. So those are the 3 things. Tommy brought up the set scoring system. I think the open scoring is Ariel's idea, so I'll give him that credit. And I just was thinking to myself and going, how would we make it more consistent? How would event to event, outside of just a score set, how would we make opinions on those scores more consistent? We'll use the same people. They have a traveling PR crew. They have a traveling road crew to set things up. They have a traveling event crew. We can't have a traveling commission. We can't have a traveling judge base. I'm sure there's people, should the money be right, that would love to take a trip to X city, have it paid for them to go and judge a fight correctly, to do their job and be rewarded for it by being able to be a part of some of the greatest events in history. But that's just me. So listen, that's not going to fix everything. There's still going to be anomalies, but these are very basic things that we can do to try to better our sport, to try to make our sport, I don't want to say legitimate, because our sport is legitimate. We have a very high-level sport with high-level athletes and combatants that are the top of the top at any part of the world. But our judging is falling behind that of major sports, and that is because it's subjective. It's not. There's no punishment. There's no consequences. There's no accountability even at the highest levels. And we saw this Saturday. Dominick Reyes should be the light heavyweight champion of the world, and he's not. So, with that being said, guys, that's our recap. The 2 things I'll leave you guys with today and the takeaways. What happens to Dominick Reyes next? And this is kind of, I skipped over this, but the 2 things that are next for those guys. Dominick Reyes' future, should he had won Saturday, would not be dependent upon Jon Jones at all. Now it is. Now Dominick's next move is if Jon grants him a rematch, or if the UFC grants him a rematch with Jon, or if Jon doesn't go to heavyweight, or if Jon doesn't get the fight with Israel Adesanya, then he finds his next move. That's got to be the most frustrating part of this, is Dominick Reyes, for all intents and purposes, won a fight, should have a belt, should be in control of his own future, should change his life, and unfortunately it didn't happen that way for him. Number 2 takeaway, what does Jon Jones do next? Jon Jones has opportunities to do a lot of things. Obviously, Israel Adesanya, we'll see what happens with Yoel Romero, but he has now an opportunity to rematch Dominick Reyes and prove that he won that belt, prove that he is the better fighter, because a lot of people, I would say, it's a general number to say a lot, most people that watched that fight believe Dominick Reyes beat Jon Jones that night. And I don't know if it's in John's heart that he needs to feel like he said after he won the fight, I think he put it on Twitter, that he's more confident that he won. Okay. So then maybe Corey Anderson, Jan Blachowicz could be next, or we could be looking at John going to heavyweight, which we'll see. I would like to see especially after that fight, how Dominick touched John. And even though John did show a crazy good chin, I don't know about the heavyweight move. I'll say that. I don't know. Even though maybe John would possess a speed advantage, maybe not after watching again that fight Saturday. So those are the two takeaways. What do those two guys do next? And do their paths intersect again? Do we see that rematch? Do we see it next? Do we see it ever? Do we see the John going to heavyweight and giving up the 205 title? I don't know. But outside of that, my biggest takeaway from the card is MMA judging. We have to come together, create dialogue, and find a way to better our sport. Because if not, these things are going to continue to happen, and it leaves a bad taste in your mouth. As a fan, as a fighter, as people that dedicate a lot of time to this, guys, I dedicate sometimes 4 to 5 hours on a day, plus the 4 or 5 to 6 hours I do during the week, damn near 15 hours to MMA weekly, you know? And I'd like to dedicate more. I'd like to dedicate more to like 40 to 50 hours to MMA weekly, but this is a sport I'm truly invested in and truly want to see, you know, become one of those highest level sports that, and internationally it can do that. It definitely can do that. It can compete with soccer. It can compete with all these international sports because it does have such a wide range. But to do that, we have to be more consistent, and we have to give these fighters who put everything out there in front of us the opportunity to be great and earn what it is that they go out there and do earn. So that's all I got today, guys. I'm going to mess with this mixer a little bit, try to fix the volume stuff. I know I'm not as loud as I'd want to be, but in my headphones, I'm super loud. So I got to go fix that. But thank you guys for watching. I know this is a little bit later than usual. It's 10:30 on the East Coast, but I got my fitness video out for this week, or I got it done filming, and that should be out later this week. So with that being said, thank you to Tommy, Justin, MMA KO, Gerald, Shogun, Waffles, everybody that popped in chat tonight. Thank you so much. I will see you guys Thursday for our, I think we have, who do we have on our next card? We have Corey Anderson, Jan Blachowicz. Cool. So we will do some preview for that fight. We might get into some other talk. We might get into some Marvel talk maybe on Thursday. It'll be a little bit more time we can spend on the podcast a little bit earlier. So I will see you guys then. Thank you so much for watching. This is the W.A.D.E concept, where you already know we are debating and doing everything. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.